a recent alchemist who predicted and warned of nuclear war, his mystery and his fate. He had a pseudonym, Fulcanelli, and it was a name used by the French alchemist, esoteric author, whose identity is still debated. The name Fulcanelli seems to be play on words, Vulcan, and the ancient Roman god for fire, plus El, the Canaanite name for God, Vulcanelli. So, the sacred fire. The appeal of Fulcanelli as a cultural phenomenon is due partly to the mystery of most aspects of his life and works. One of the anecdotes pertaining to his life retells in particular how his most devoted pupil, Eugene Casselier, supposedly performed a successful transmutation of 100 grams of lead into gold in a laboratory of the gasworks of Sarcelles at the Georgie Company with the use of a small quantity of the projection powder, the alchemist called it, the ultimate goal of Western alchemy. The philosopher's stone or power of projection had been created. The process of projection would be used to transmute the lesser substance into a higher form, often lead into gold. So he had used a small quantity of this projection powder given to him by his teacher in the presence of Julien Champagne, Gustave Sauvage. Now, Fulcanelli was likely a Frenchman educated in the ways of alchemical lore, architecture, art, science, and languages. He wrote 2 books that were published after his disappearance in 1926, having left his magnus opus, The Mystery of the Cathedrals, with his only student, Eugene Casselier. Its first edition consisted of 300 copies and was published by Jean Schmitt in Paris. Theories about Fulcanelli speculate that he was one or another famous French occultist of the time, perhaps a member of the former royal family, the House of Valois, or another member of the Brothers of Heliopolis, a society centered around Fulcanelli, which included Eugene Casselier, Jean-Julien Champagne, and Jules Boucher. Patrick Rivière, student of Casselier, believed that Fulcanelli's true identity was Jules Verne, a famous French physicist. In a 1996 book, samples of writings by Jean-Julien Hubert Champagne, born January 23, 1877, and Fulcanelli are compared and show considerable similarities. In any event, by 1916, Fulcanelli had accepted Casselier, who was then only 16 years old, as his first student. During 1921, he accepted the sons of Ferdinand de Lesseps as students, and in 1922, 2 more students, Jules Boucher and Gaston Sauvage. In 1925, Fulcanelli relocated to 59 Rue Rochechouart, where he allegedly succeeded in transmuting base metals into gold. In 1960, with the publication of the international bestseller The Morning of the Magicians, Pauwels and Berger popularized the mystery of the master alchemist. Fulcanelli's master, without neglecting the belief of some researchers that Casselier himself could have been Fulcanelli, Casselier himself believes Fulcanelli's master was Basil Valentine, an alchemist of the 15th century. The theoretical master, at least, for Fulcanelli's initiator may have been his own wife. As Fulcanelli describes in a strange letter he kept as a talisman about the completion of the great work by someone who is presumably Basil Valentine, he also mentions his own wife. Quote, "When my wife told me the good news, and my wife and the inexplicable intuition of sensitives had a really strange dream," end quote. As shown by the letter, when referring to something as important as the great work, he mentions his wife as someone important to the magnum opus. So according to Louis Paulet, Fulcanelli survived World War II and disappeared completely after the liberation of Paris. Every attempt to find him failed, In August 1945, American G2 Army Intelligence asked Jacques Berger to contact a certain Army major who was in charge of the operation of searching for German research reports on atomic energy. The major, whose identity was apparently anonymous or simply forgotten, wanted to know the whereabouts of Fulcanelli. Berger could not say, and the Army major seemed satisfied Fulcanelli could not be found. Meeting in Paris with Jacques Berger, Walter Lang reports that Fulcanelli communicated with Jacques Berger to warn French atomic physicist André Heilbronner of man's impending use of nuclear weapons. According to Fulcanelli, nuclear weapons had been used before and by against humanity. Professor Heilbronner and Chevillon, among others, were assassinated by the Gestapo towards the end of World War II. The meeting between Jacques Berger and Fulcanelli reportedly occurred during June 1937 in a laboratory of the Gas Board in Paris. According to Neil Powell, the following is a translation of the original verbatim transcript of the rendezvous. Quote, "You're on the brink of success, as indeed are several others of our scientists today. Please allow me be very, very careful. I warn you, the liberation of nuclear power is easier than you think, and the radioactivity artificially produced can poison the atmosphere of our planet in a very short time, a few years. Moreover, atomic explosives can be produced from a few grains of metal powerful enough to destroy whole cities. I'm telling you this for a fact. The alchemists have known it for a very long time. I shall not attempt to prove to you what I'm now going to say, but I ask you to repeat it to Mr. Heilbronner. Certain geometrical arrangements of highly purified materials are enough to release atomic forces without having recourse to either electricity or vacuum techniques. The secret of alchemy is this: there is a way of manipulating matter and energy so as to produce what modern scientists call a field of force. A field of force? In physics, the field is a physical quantity represented by a scalar vector or tensor that has a value for each point in space and time. For example, on a weather map, the surface temperature is described by assigning a number to each point on the map. So the field of force, the field acts on the observer and puts him in a privileged position vis-à-vis the universe. From this position, he has access to the realities which are ordinarily hidden from us by time and space, matter and energy. This is what we call the great work. The great work is a term used in Hermeticism by alchemists and occult traditions descending from it, such as thelema. Accomplishing the great work symbolizes the creation of the philosopher's stone, represents the culmination of the spiritual path, the attainment of enlightenment, etc. And the great Hermetic work supposedly relates to Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth, the ancient Atlantean. Now, when Berger asked Fulcanelli about the philosopher's stone, it's a mythical alchemical substance capable of turning base metals such as mercury into gold or silver. It's also called the elixir of life, useful for rejuvenation and for achieving immortality. So when Berger asked Fulcanelli about this philosopher's stone, the alchemist answered, quote, "The vital thing is not the transmutation of metals, but that of the experimenter himself. It is an ancient secret that a few people rediscover each century. Unfortunately, only a handful are successful," he said, end quote. In December 1938, the German chemists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann sent a manuscript to Nature Wissenschaften, reporting that they had detected the element barium after bombarding uranium and neutrons. Lise Meitner and her nephew Otto Robert Frisch correctly interpreted these results as being nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is a reaction in which the nucleus of an atom splits into two or more smaller nuclei. The fission process often produces gamma photons and releases a very large amount of energy, even by the energetic standards of radioactive decay. So, now, Rendezvous in Spain, according to Cancellet, his last encounter with Fulcanelli happened in 1953, years after his disappearance, when he went to Spain and there was taken to a castle high in the mountains for a rendezvous with his former master. Cancellet had known Fulcanelli as an old man in his 80s, but now the master had grown younger and had physically changed in appearance. He was now an androgynous creature, a being Fulcanelli called the divine androgen. The reunion was brief, and Fulcanelli once again disappeared, not leaving any trace of his whereabouts. So that's strange there by itself. He was physically changed, he grew younger. The phonetic Kabbalah, according to Fulcanelli, the phonetic Kabbalah, Fulcanelli's term for a special use of language, drawing on phonetic similarities and other symbolic techniques for expanding the expressive reach of words, is not the Hebrew Kabbalah. Even the derivation is different. Kabbalah, spelled C-A-B-A-L-A, is derived from the Latin Caballus, the horse, as the horse of Troy in the Iliad. It's basically homophonic and symphonic rather than numerical. It's based on phonetic assonance and resonance. The assonance is a resemblance to the sounds or words, syllables either between their vowels or between their consonants. However, assonance between consonants is generally called consonance in American usage. So it's based on phonetic assonance and a resonance. To echo the gay science, sometimes translated the joyful wisdom or the joyous science, is a book by Friedrich Nietzsche, published in 1882, and followed by a second edition, 1887. So this science, in the words of the ancient Greek deities, the gay science, in the words of the ancient Greek deities, spoken in sacred ancient Greek nomenclature. So they used ancient Greek to say these things. According to Walter Lang, who wrote the introduction to the English translation of Fulcanelli's The Mysteries of the Cathedrals, the basic principles of the phonetic Kabbalah are restored in Fulcanelli's magnum opus. And he wrote 2 books, The Mysteries of the Cathedrals and Dwellings of the Philosophers, books written in a cryptic and erudite manner, replete with Latin and Greek puns, alchemical symbols, double entendres, and lectures on and in argot and cant, all of which which serve to keep casual readers ignorant. And a 3rd book, End of World's Glory, was also reportedly being prepared for publication. The notes and books were left for a time with his only student, Cancellet. Fulcanelli decided that the timing for the publication of the book was not right, so it was never, in fact, published. The book in the same name, citing Fulcanelli as the author, was published much later, but has been shown to be a counterfeit. So this is about what he warned about, the fact that it would only take a few days for the whole world to be poisoned by radioactivity worldwide, and that it had been used many times in the past. So this is what he was warning against. And very strange that he somehow became younger and in a paranormal way, and appeared that he was an androgynous creature. Androgynous meaning a mixture of man and woman. Very strange. The divine androgen is what Fulcanelli called. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. And this is on Wikipedia. I'll leave a link below for you. Thank you. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.